So, which money-making method is better? Is it going to be farming, or is it going to be mining? It's a question that really divides a lot of people in terms of the answer. So, we're going to investigate today and present facts against facts and see which one is better for you. Also, I do want to say, by no means is this video a guide for either mining or farming. There'll be much better people out there to make guides on either. It's not a guide, it's just a comparison. And the first thing we're going to start off with for both skills is the setup. And I think we'll start with mining first. So, there's a few different stats that you need to increase in order to mine efficiently. The first one being mining speed, then mining fortune, of course pristine. Well, in terms of money, at least those are the main ones. Now, to mine efficiently in terms of making money, you're going to need a lot of powder. To get this powder, you're going to have to powder mine. Well, how do you powder mine? Well, you go basically into the crystal hollows and you just mine. You just mine stone. It's simply that. You open chests and those chests can give you powder. When you're powder mining, you're going to need a completely different setup and kind of route in the tree as you would as if you're actually going to mine efficiently for money. But of course, when it comes to it, you can always just reset your tree. So the bottom line is you're going to have to powder mine. And the more powder that you get, the more money you're going to make. It's as simple as that. The better your stats are going to be. Now, disregarding gear, this is going to be your main bit of setup in terms of mining. Of course, when you actually come to mining, you're going to have to either buy or set up a route yourself as well. Setting up a route at first is something that's probably going to be quite time consuming. However, I guess once you get used to it, you're going to kind of get used to where all the gemstones spawn, and it's going to be much quicker. So assuming you have enough powder, when it comes to mining, it's not really quite as simple in terms of mining efficiently of just going somewhere in the crystal holes and start mining. There is setup involved every time you're going to mine, whether that is setup that you're going to do or pay for somebody else to do. Now, alternatively, what you could do is basically come over to the glaciate tunnels. Now, there's no setup involved in mining here. Of course, you need the powder, but you can just straight up mine the gemstones. You don't need to create a route. However, realistically, you don't make as much money, because once you've mined all the gemstones that you want, you're going to have to lobby swap. Now, disregarding gear, how about the setup for farming? Well, first of all, you're going to need a mega farm. Well, maybe not a mega farm, but you're definitely going to need to build a modified farm. You pick your crop of choice, presuming it's probably melon, for money, and you build a modified melon farm. That's efficient. Now, for farming, of course, we don't have a Heart of the Mountain tree or an equivalent, but we do have Jacob's contests. So, assuming that you had, well, let's say pretty much no farming experience, you're going to have to farm a pretty extensive amount of each crop if you actually want to be really efficient when farming, in terms of fortune anyway. Which means that something like a mega farm makes it way, way easier. But in real terms, everything else is gear. So that's pretty much it. It's quite obvious, and I'm sure we can all agree, that the setup for farming is way, 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 way shorter than it is for mining. In the long term and in the short term. In the long term, you have to build a mega farm for farming. In the long term, you have to get a ton of powder for mining. In the short term, you can simply just go straight up to your farm and start farming, whereas if you wanted to mine, you'd have to buy or set up a route. So, in terms of setup, the advantage definitely goes to farming. Now, before we do go any further, if you are planning on purchasing anything from the Hypixel store, make sure to use code NITROS. It gets yourself 5% off. You should subscribe to the channel. If you watch the videos and you haven't subscribed, please make sure to do so. You should join the Discord server. It's linked in the description of this video. We offer slayers and dungeon carries, so if you need carries or want to carry and make some coins, make sure to join. Okay, now we're going to move on to the gear required in terms of cost. What is the investment that you need to make to be able to farm efficiently or mine efficiently? Well, let's start with mining. Let's see how much a maxed out mining setup actually costs. Well, the best possible Divan's drill you can buy off the auction house at the moment is 2.6 billion coins. To pick up a maxed out set of Divan's armor, you're looking at around about 650 million. Level 100 legendary Scather, that one's tier boosted. You're looking at around about 420 mil. I mean, maybe you don't need a pendant of Divan, but you know what? If you're gonna max out, go for it. Relic of Power, yeah, you probably need that too. I'm at over 6.2 billion and I don't even think we're close to being finished. But do you see where this is going? It's a huge investment, a massive investment. So let's move on to farming. So let's see, pretty much the best melon dice you can possibly buy is around about 125 mil. And then a legendary level 100 elephant with a green bandana is 30 mil. And then for 3/4 Fermento with Rancher's Boots, Pestome 85, Recombobulated Mossy, we're looking at around about 200 mil. You could honestly probably get that for a bit cheaper, but we're just going to say 200. And then for a full set of Rooted Green Thumb 5 Lotus equipment, we're looking at around about 380 mil. Anita's Artifact, that's 7 mil. Sure, I guess we could add the price of an Infinavacuum on there, even though We might as well at this point. Now that isn't quite everything, but my point is our total is 782 mil, and we're pretty much almost there. Now sure, I've only included one tool. If we were to include another, I don't know, let's say 9 tools at 50 mil, that's another 450 mil, and it takes us up to around about 1.3 billion, which is a fraction of the cost of basically the equivalent mining setup. So in terms of investment on your setup, it's got to be said that, well, farming also takes the win here. But after all, this is a money-making method comparison, and I guess we're getting on to what really matters right now. And that is how much money you actually make. Well, with farming, realistically, your cap is probably going to be around about 16, 17, 18 million coins per hour. Whereas mining, well, yeah, you could quite comfortably make 40, 50, 60 mil an hour. There's variables as well. For instance, if it's coal and it's a mining fiesta, you could potentially make, well, you will make even more. But just for any old regular day, mining is going to be substantially better when you have a better setup and you have a proper route configured, as opposed to, you know, a proper setup for farming and the best mega farm. So in terms of the actual money that you'd be making with a max mining setup compared to a max farming setup, it is substantially better. You know, you'll make way more money mining. But you've got to consider that you've probably spent like maybe about 4 or 5 billion coins more in your setup, and also spent a lot more time actually basically setting up and progressing to get to the point where you can start to make this money. Well, how about the actual mechanics? How about farming and mining itself? Well, I'm actually farming myself at the moment. I'm going for farming 60, so I'm farming mushrooms for XP. It's so brain dead to farm, I'm not going to lie. It is virtually AFK. All you need to do is go to your controls and basically set the attack button as any button on your keyboard, so you don't have to even touch your mouse. A lot of people set it as space. I like to set it as X. Don't know why, it's just how it is. The easiest way to then do it is basically just type the command set home at the perfect angle for whatever crop that you're farming. And then it's literally just a case of make sure you're not flying. If you've got your farm built properly, you just hold 2 buttons down. When you get to the end of the farm, you simply just switch. You'll still be holding the attack button, but for me, instead of walking backwards, I'll be walking forwards. This is literally it. You don't have to pay attention. Like, the amount of episodes of The Office on YouTube that I've watched in the past few days since I've been farming is scary. So it's a lot less active. You have to pay a lot less attention to the actual game. Although I would still pay attention because you could potentially get macro checked. Now with mining, to put it simply, you have to pay more attention to the game. You can't just hold 2 buttons down and kind of completely and utterly mentally check out. You have to be aware of your surroundings. You've got to mine each individual vein. You've got to go from vein to vein. You've got to mine each block. You've got to walk. I know it's crazy. You've got to hopefully not die to an automaton when you have no armor on. Yeah, you just simply have to pay more attention, which for some people is a good thing, and for other people is a bad thing. If you just want to chill out and not really pay much attention to the game but still be progressing, then, well yeah, farming is probably what you're looking for. If you actually want to be doing something a bit more active because you get incredibly bored with farming, which is understandable, then, you know, for some people, mining's better. So as for the actual mechanics, I don't really think there's a winner. I think it just depends on what you prefer personally and maybe what you're wanting to do at that, you know, period of time. Now for me, I get incredibly bored farming. I just end up watching something, which for me is basically not even playing the game. I'm more engrossed in what I'm watching rather than the actual game, which kind of defeats the point of playing the game, for me. But at the same time, mining does require more attention, and honestly, it requires more skill. It takes no skill to hold 2 buttons down and farm. But to mine efficiently, you've definitely got to get the hang of it. So here's what I'd say. Farming takes substantially less time to set up. You don't have to invest anywhere near as much money into farming as you would for mining. Sure, maybe you'll have to splash out some money on visitors and things like that. It's not going to come close to the investment for mining though. The bottom line is, mining will make you more money, and substantially more money. Definitely double and maybe even triple. And in terms of the mechanics, it kind of just comes down to preference. Now, I'd say farming is definitely the easier option, and I guess in the short term, you're going to probably make more money farming. But in the long term, you're going to make way more money mining. So it depends on what you want. Are you willing to invest a lot of time in getting things set up and a lot of money to make more money in the future? Or are you going to settle for making less money but be able to do that sooner? It's not really something that I can answer for you. It's got to be something that you've got to make the decision on yourself. Now, I asked in my Discord server to see what people thought. Do you prefer mining or do you prefer farming for a money-making method, and why? Farm, turn brain off. I guess so. Mining is more money, farming you can do without brain. Once again, very, very similar to the last one. Farming for early game, mining for mid game, and I guess that makes more sense. It's a lot easier to get into farming, so it makes more sense to do it earlier in the game. Farming takes less brain cells and easier to set up. I guess that's true. Mining, way more diversity. You have gold, gems, mithril, glaciite mineshafts, even powder mining makes money. In case of farming, everything is pretty much the same, all crops just holding 2 buttons. Yeah, that's true. Mining is more interactive. Yeah. And also, I guess it is a little bit more diverse. Farming because YouTube, yeah, I guess you can farm and then engross yourself in something that isn't Hypixel Skyblock. Farming because I like it and it's easier. And I guess this is the main thing. You might make more money from mining and it might take you longer to set up and you may have the money to invest, but at the end of the day, are you actually going to enjoy mining? And I think this is something you've got to ask yourself. If you're not actually enjoying doing it and sure you can kind of just power through it to get the grind done, is it even worth doing? You can still make money other ways. But yeah, farming is easier too. Mining because more money and more interactive. Yeah, I guess so. It's definitely more money and more interactive could be a plus or a negative. And realistically, the general consensus is that farming is easier. It's not as interactive. It doesn't make as much money. Whereas mining, you have to focus more, makes more money, more of an investment. Pretty much what we've gone through in the video. But let me know what you think in the comments. As at the end of the day, it's completely and utterly all down to preference. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.